I can't remember now. I've lost my train of thought. I hope you're well anyway. We are the CIPD HR Inform, and today we have a brilliant webinar. Actually, it's one of my dark side of HR webinars. I did this actually a while ago, something similar with different slides a few years ago, and it went down very well. I think it's something we need to talk about. It isn't something we like to talk about, but we have to talk about all the horrible stuff in HR. This is one of them. It's dealing with addiction. It's dealing with intoxication in the workplace. And addiction comes in many forms. The CIPD HR Inform, we have been around for over 40 years. We started off with paperwork and documents that HR people and managers of businesses would rely on. We've come on a lot farther than then now, and we offer advice 24 hours a day, 365 days of the year. We back it up by our software, our platform, which is full of training material, support material, letters and documentation. And that's who we are, the CIPD HR Inform. We're trusted. The law changes, we change our documentation on our software immediately with our content writers at the top of their field, really. We offer 24 advice. So the detail contained within this webinar, this is the legal side, I have to say, is based on GB and Northern Ireland employment legislation. And members in the jurisdiction of Republic of Ireland, Jersey, Guernsey and the Isle of Man, just give us a call on the advice line, but this is really generic actually. So we are talking about addiction, and I just want to offer my heart to everybody here that is affected by anybody in their family or lives that have an addiction, that have some sort of habit that affects their life. And I hope, my heart goes to you there, because I know it's tough. And actually, I worked with an addiction doctor many, many years ago. He said one of the hardest things to give up is alcohol. And he said that the reason for that is because it's so socially acceptable, and we link it to everything that's fun, whether it's Christmas, whether it's a party, whether it's a birthday, christening, wedding, toast to celebrate. It's ready available at supermarkets, with fun flavors now. It's really one of the hardest things to give up. But addiction, we're going to talk about it, but let me just explain to you what is the HR Inform. It's a one-stop shop. We want to be a one-stop shop. We are that one-stop shop, and we serve hundreds of thousands of clients in different industries: care, homes, financial sector, safety, etc. Blah blah blah. Loads of different industries. I couldn't even tell you the list of how many. But also we do specific care webinars now. If you ever want to join me, targeted with the care sector, and also. I'm going to ask you that question actually, and I know that you may not be on that list, everybody. We ask this question and lots of people come back and say, well, I'm in this industry, it's not on there. We can't list every industry. If you're not listed on there, let us know which industry you're in. I'm just going to ask you the question, what industry are you working in? And while you're answering that, I'm just going to talk a little bit about addiction, and also just to say to you that personally, I have a very, very large family, and my dad had 4 brothers, so he's one of 5 brothers. And one of his brothers, who's such a lovely man, and his wife they have 3 sons, and they have a couple of nephews as well, grandsons as well. And each and every single one of them is addicted to heroin. And every single one of them has been in prison, and some are still in prison at this moment. I think every single one of them are in prison. And I remember a couple of years ago, my sister saying that one of my cousins had been on Facebook. Somebody had named and shamed him on Facebook, walking around during the day trying to steal from people's porches and gardens. And somebody took a picture, and below this picture, there was lots of comments saying, I know the mother and father of this man, and they're a lovely family, and it's a shame for them that they have to put up with this. It's a shame that they have children like that. And unfortunately, it is very sad. It's very sad. And that's why I reach out to everybody and say, my heart goes to you. If you have anybody in your family that are suffering, or you have a member of staff that is suffering, that is addicted. Addiction is a significant issue in the workplace now, with the increasing availability availability and use of substances, as well as the rise of technology making it easier and simpler with online activities. Addiction can affect employees in various ways. Substance abuse, for one, such as alcohol or drug addiction, impairs performance. It causes health and safety issues, let's face it, but also it affects attendance and overall well-being. Additionally, behavioural issues such as an excessive internet use, social media use, addiction to porn, gambling, affects productivity, but also interpersonal relationships as well. And it is important for you, the employer, to address it, to help and provide support and resources for employees who may be struggling. And I wanted to share that with you. Let's have a look at what the poll says now. So I'm going to close this now. We've got 79% of people voted 80, and love you to join in the votes if that's okay. If you're not listed on there, like I said, please put on there what you are. I'm going to share that with the audience today so we can see the types of people and industries that are listening today. We've got 40% in trade, engineering, construction, manufacturing, 10% hospitality, retail, leisure, 6% marketing, telecommunications and consultancy, 34% in public sector, 13% in business finance. So that is our listeners today, or those are our listeners today. Let's just have a look at we've opened up the questions now. Oh, can you see me now? Can you? Now you can. Okay. Right, okay. And I just want to say good morning to Sharon, good morning to Rachel, Kiara, Fiona, and Neelam, who've already started entering the chat. So good morning, everybody. So that's who we are. We've done the poll. Today, what I am going to cover is why substance misuse at work is an issue. I'm then going to talk about applying the law. I'm then going to talk about dealing with substance misuse at work and supporting employees through addiction and testing at work as well. Addiction, we've got to remember, is a complex condition, and it's characterized by compulsive engagement in rewarding sort of like stimuli, they call it. So it makes you feel good once you have it. And that's even in some situations where there are adverse consequences. And so we're looking at drugs, we're looking at alcohol, but there are other ways of addiction. There's diet, slimming pills, there's, as I said, porn, there's shopping, there's gambling, and it's so easy now to become addicted to something because of social media, the internet, but addiction is often accompanied by loss of control, cravings, and a strong desire to continue engaging in this addictive behavior. It is becoming more and more frequent within the workplace. So let's talk about this, and why, substance. We're going to talk about this, and here's the overview. So in 2020, 33% of employers found to provide information on support for drug and alcohol related problems. The data from 2012 calculated lost productivity due to alcohol in the UK. 2012, I'm sure they've got that. I'm sure it's 2021, so it doesn't matter, because let's face it, even if it was 2012, it cost the productivity to alcohol in the UK cost 7.3 billion per year. And actually, I even remember contracts back in the 80s where they used to determine how much alcohol you could drink. It was a regular thing. You went for your lunch, you went to the pub. There weren't Subways around there. McDonald's were far and few between. There weren't KFCs. What's that song? It goes Burger King, KFC, and a Pizza Hut. They weren't around. If you wanted to have a lunch, you would go to the local pub or bring a sandwich box in, and that was it. And they'd only just started to deliver sandwiches, so you spent your lunch hour or your break in the pub, and obviously surrounded by alcohol. Many people drank in those days with their lunch. A couple of pints, or a lady would have a glass of wine or half a lager. That's what people had then. And actually, in the employment contracts of the day, like the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, those contracts would stipulate, exactly what was the amount you could have of alcohol. Even bus drivers' contracts would say you can only have 2 units of alcohol in your lunch break. So it was quite common to accept the fact that people drank at work. It was acceptable. Managing drug and alcohol misuse is at work. The CIPD survey was August of 2020. Some of the references we've got are the Institute of Alcohol Studies, John Woodhouse, Alcohol Minimum Price and House of Commons, just to give you some of the reference material we've got for this. And I think that date's wrong, actually, 2012. I think it should say 2021. Either way, that it's just giving you an idea of what the figures are when it comes to alcohol abuse. And then we have to take it seriously. So why substance misuse at work is an issue? Let's have a look at that. Substance misuse and intoxication at work. So substance misuse issues should be approached with compassion and sensitivity. Attending work under the influence can have potentially very serious consequences, especially where it leads to inappropriate or violent behaviour, or the employee's role is safety critical. I'm sure you've seen people change their personality when they've had a drink, when they've taken something, when they've reacted to something. Policies and procedures should be in place to manage both intoxication at work and to support employees with addiction issues. Some of the types of addiction, by the way, are substance addiction, which I've just spoken about. This includes addiction to substances such as alcohol, tobacco, vaping, by the way, opioids, stimulants, hallucinogens, and other drugs. Behavioral addiction is something we don't really talk about as much as we should, and this is like compulsive behaviors. So this is and they become addictive. So this is gambling, gaming, for example. We've dealt with a lot of actually issues within our advice line for people that have staff that game all night and are very tired during the day. So gaming, internet addiction, shopping addiction, or compulsive exercising. That's just an example. The other one is food addiction, and this refers to a compulsive overeating or binge eating disorder, where individuals have an uncontrollable urge to consume large quantities of food, often leading to negative physical and emotional consequences. And then there's work addiction, also known as workaholism. I can't even say it. You know what I'm on about. A workaholic. It is an addiction to work categorized by excessive and uncontrollable need to work, often resulting in a neglect of personal relationships, health, and well-being. Sex addiction's another one, and this involves compulsive sexual behaviors that interfere with daily life and relationships, causing distress and negative consequences. And then we've got gambling addiction, and this refers to the uncontrollable urge to gamble, leading to negative financial, emotional, and social consequences. The internet has opened up for everybody really to get addicted to lots of stuff. So the peer pressure of looking a certain way or having the right thing, we've got to remember that addiction is a complex and multifaceted a condition, and individuals can experience addiction to multiple substances or behaviors at the same time as well. So let's have a look again at substance misuse and intoxication. Sensitively and from a well-being angle rather than purely as a disciplinary matter. And we've got to remember we're here, as I said, our employees are turning more and more to us for support, and I promise you this is going to get bigger within the next couple of years. Look, at the moment, as you know, I'm going home to the UK on the 15th of December, and I can't wait. And I've been working in Canada, as you know, and marijuana is illegal it's legal here, and they have to have drug kits in work, you know, and you can smell it on people's clothes. And there's an argument for making it legal, there's an argument for not making it legal, and we're getting more and more of the people that deal marijuana in the UK spraying it with addictive substances. So what was actually one of the softer drugs is now becoming one of the harder drugs in the UK because it's being sprayed with stuff that's making people keep buying it. So should it be legalized to have that control factor on it? I can tell you in Canada, I thought that I'd see more use of it, you know, daily, but you don't. But it is legal. You know, there's shops on the high street. You can get mushrooms if you wanted them as well. There's shops selling mushrooms. So it's part of everyday life over here because people are taking it anyway. I'd love to open up the conversation, and we're going to talk about actually. You know, we've got a few people asking now. So Jelena is asking me, it would be very interesting to know more about personal data protection versus making ad hoc drug testing mandatory at work. Sharon's saying, will the reference material be supplied too? Yes, it will. And I hope I'm pronouncing this right. Sylvia, what if you can smell alcohol in someone, but they say they had a heavy session the night before and not under the influence? So we're going to cover all of this in this session as I'm going along. Okay, so we're going to cover all of that, all of your questions. Don't worry about it. So the impact of substance misuse and intoxication at work, we've got increased absence, problems with punctuality, reduced performance, productivity, safety risks to the individuals and others, adverse impact on company reputation and customer relations, possibility of erratic workplace behaviour, potentially leading to increased risk of violence, sexual harassment or aggressive abusive language. It's a negative impact as well on team morale and impaired judgment. And also it creates this office gossip as well. I remember working in a firm many years ago, and there was a lady called Jan actually. You would never, ever, ever have thought, if you had a whole row of people lined up in front of you, you never ever thought she had a drink problem, but everybody knew it. It was never ever dealt with. She was very, very quiet. She kept herself to herself. Her work was great, but you saw her go to a desk and drink out of a bottle. You know, everybody knew it, but nobody said anything in those days, and nobody did anything about it. But attending work under the influence can have potentially very serious consequences for the worker, their colleagues, and their business. And what we've got to remember, I don't judge anybody. I've never walked in anybody else's shoes, so I don't know how much they hurt you, and I don't know what has caused anybody to be addicted to something. And I often thought that about Jan. I always thought, well, what has caused her to be, you know, to have such a drink issue at such a young age? And it makes me think about that. So and more and more questions coming through about this. So it is a very Emma's asking, will we be able to get the slides afterwards? Yes, she will. So creating the right workplace culture, substance misuse issues fall within the organisation's well-being offering and legal considerations. We need to focus on support and creating an environment that aids recovery. Training, especially for line managers, is very important. How to deal with this. This is a delicate issue, and create and implement organisational policies on expectations around drug and alcohol misuse in the workplace. Now, the CIPD actually recommends dealing with substance misuse issues as part of your organisation's well-being offering. And this focus should be on supporting the individuals to get the help they need and creating an environment at work that aids their recovery. And this environment can be created by training, especially for line managers, on how to deal with these issues sensitively and confidentially. Create and implement organisational policies on expectations around drugs and alcohol and consequences on misuse. Communicate this and ask employees to confirm that they have read, and not only have they read, like I always say in these webinars, but they've also understood it as well. So we're going to talk about applying the law now, because this is a stickler here. A lot of people there actually they worry about how they will implement the law and apply the law. So we're going to talk about that next. But before I do that, I'm going to be a little bit more interactive with you and do a poll. So have you or your employee dealt with addiction and intoxication in your workplace recently? Let me ask you this question, because we can share this. Everybody listening will get an idea of, you know, other members that are in this in HR, if they've had to deal with this. So it's just yes, no, or don't want to address. We're not going to hound you down with that. We've got a lot of questions here, which I'm actually going to cover throughout this webinar, by the way. So I've got people asking about the slides, which you'll get afterwards. We're going to talk about a lot of these questions. I'm looking through them now. They're coming in thick and fast, actually. A bit like the snow in certain areas in the UK at the minute, and I'll go through them towards the end. So we've got at the moment, come on, let's get to 80% voted. I really want to know. This is astounding, absolutely astounding. I can believe it, but I'm shocked. I'm shocked that we've got over half the audience saying yes, we have. Sign of the times, isn't it? It's really sad. So we need help on dealing with this. Look at us in HR. We used to just issue contracts years ago and take people on and speak to them if something went wrong. Now we're dealing with mental health, menopause, men's health, neurodiversity. We're dealing with addiction, intoxication. We're dealing with it all. And I suppose in a way we have done for years, but society has had a huge impact on HR. We just don't stop anymore. I'm going to close this now. I've had 84% votes. I would have loved to get to 90 just to get a really good idea of everybody there. But look at this. I'm going to share this with you. This is astounding. It's actually taken my breath away. The amount of people and companies here that are saying what they've dealt with. So we've said, how have you or your employees dealt with this? 59% said yes. 39% said no. 2% said don't want to address this. That's a huge amount, isn't it? That's huge. That's really breathtaking, really. I'm going to hide that. And that's why we should talk about these things. This dark side that we don't want to talk about in HR, we have to address it. And I've got more and more questions coming through. So let's look at applying the law. Okay, so this is the interesting thing. I'll put my screen back up because my screen went off there for a second. So, there's no specific law relating to addiction problems at work. The Health and Safety at Work Act is you have to ensure, so far as reasonably practicable, the health, safety and welfare of employees. So there's no specific law relating to addiction problems at work, but we have this Health and Safety at Work Act 1974, and there's the risk of unfair or unconstructive dismissal under the Employment Rights Act 1996 if proper process isn't followed in dealing with an employee around substance misuse issues. And some of the tribunals we're seeing, that's what's happened. Okay, when an employer has lost the tribunal, it's not because they've made the wrong decision, it's their processes weren't right. And remember, we are here to give you a guide in hand. We have our legal promise to you, and we will support and help you. And then we've got the Equality Act, so there is the potential for disability protections to apply, which would trigger the duty to make reasonable adjustments. But if you don't have a clue, which I would imagine a lot of people would think, where do I start? Remember, we're here at the end of our advice line to support you. So addiction and the Equality Act, most addictions excluded apart from addiction to prescribed medication. Addictions can cause impairments which could be classed as a disability, and it does not matter how the impairment was caused. So need to assess the risks. We talk about risk assessments from a health and safety point of view, which are a thing, but a real physical thing. But here, legal risks are the issue, and it's important to know where to tread. Most addictions are excluded from protection. That's written into the Equality Act guidance on factors to take into consideration when determining whether something is a disability or not. There is an actual document that says yes or no to certain things. So addictions on their own will never mean that someone has to be given those extra protections against discrimination. Remember that protection against unfair dismissal and discrimination are different. So even though they are protected under disability laws, they are still protected against unfair dismissal from 2 years of service. Now, addiction to prescribed medication is not excluded. So someone who is addicted to prescription medication will also have those extra protections. And addictions can cause impairments, which could be classed as a disability. So alcohol addiction could lead to liver damage that has a substantial adverse effect on day-to-day activities. So the addiction alone won't give them extra protections unless it's prescription drugs. But they might have something else going on that stems from the addiction, and that needs to be considered in isolation and could give them that extra protection, if you like. So where the protection is triggered, the the Equality Act is triggered, there will be a duty to make reasonable adjustments. So in reality, treat everyone the same. Go through all the same steps with everyone, because if you can do it, then you should. The difference comes when you don't do something and you should have, then there's a risk of discrimination. And I think that final statement really is the clearest one for you. So addiction and the Equality Act. And excuse me. Let's look at dealing with this substance abuse and misuse at work. Let's look at this now. And so let's have a look at and this is a lot of the questions I'm getting actually. What do I do when an employee attends work and you suspect something's not right? We have lots and lots of calls on this, hundreds of calls on this. So let's look at this question. And I know that several of the questions that have been asked, I was looking through them and I thought I'm going to answer this in a bit anyway, was saying, what do I do when I smell alcohol on somebody? What do I do when I know that they've taken drugs? So when an employee attends work and you suspect something's not right, this could happen with anyone, not just people who have addiction problems, but it could again be a sign that leads to disclosure that an employee has a problem with something like drugs or alcohol. So, for example, if an employee who is normally quiet and reserved returned from lunch talking much more much more than normal, dropping things and appearing uncoordinated and generally behaving in an uncharacteristic way, it would not be an unreasonable assumption that they had been drinking. If the employee's job involves safety, so critical things, and you are aware that they are under the influence, or you've evidence to assume that they are, and you let them carry on and they hurt themselves, this could be bad for you. If you knowingly let an employee who is intoxicated carry on working, and this puts the employee or other colleagues at risk, you could face prosecution. So don't try to stop them from driving. You could put yourself at risk. Phone the police if necessary. Remember that suspension is a precautionary measure, so the individual will remain on full pay unless there is a clear contractual right to suspend without pay, and you must ensure provisions are put in place to protect their well-being during any period of suspicion as per ACAS guidance. Now, think about contacting the employee by email or by telephone to confirm their suspension, and you may find that if they are under the influence, they don't remember all of the details. So potentially gross misconduct, but duty of care remains. Always act in accordance with organisational policy. Very important that when you take advice, the advice that you take is conducive to the policies and procedures and what you've got written down. Stop them working immediately if safety critical duties, and speak to them. Tell them you've noticed that they seem to be under the influence, and if sending them home, don't physically stop them from driving. They could become aggressive. But I'm torn with that one, really. I am so torn with that one. Organise a taxi if necessary, but that's what the advice is. So that's dealing with the fallout side of it. Now, there will be fallout after this, because what you're going to have is a follow-up when they return. You're going to have a return to work meeting and ask them what happened. Don't assume that they have done something wrong. Again, it could be a bad reaction to some medication. If they don't indicate that there is an ongoing problem, it could be a disciplinary issue. But you'll then be doing an investigation, obviously, and that could highlight some reason for their behaviour. So hold that return to work meeting, ask them what happened, don't assume anything, and make no judgments. Get them to talk through from their perspective. Ensure the employee knows the rules and why they're there. A disciplinary action may be appropriate if they don't indicate an ongoing problem. And while we're talking about discipline and being under the influence, by the way, an employee who has a positive test who then discloses that they have an addiction problem is likely to have been treated differently to one who does not, or the investigation could highlight some reason for the behaviour. Should this happen, signpost them to internal or external support and discuss what could be done in work to help them. Okay, so that's dealing with the fallout. Now, we're going to continue with dealing with this. So allow time for some more support measures to work. So we're now going to, offer those support measures, pinpoint them, and signpost them to people and support groups. But if no improvement in performance, formal action may be required, and we can prove that we have done everything reasonably practicable to support somebody. Collect evidence of concerns, and definitely record what support has been given. Remember, in HR, for those people starting out, and those seasoned HR professionals know this, but I think that if you're just starting out and this is the first webinar you've ever listened to, always collect evidence, write everything down, no matter how small, because that's your defense. That's to prove yourself innocent, to prove you've done everything reasonably practicable. So collect evidence of concerns and record what support has been given. If moving to disciplinary, ensure full and proper process is followed, and if dismissing, you must have a fair reason. Has help been offered, and did you and provided, and make sure that you have done that. So, just to really just to highlight the fact that we've got to make sure that we support somebody and we can prove that we've done that. So we've got a couple of cases here actually, but I know that George is behind the scenes. George, are you there? Because I know I want to talk through these cases, but I know that these are on the platform anyway and embedded into our software. But I wouldn't mind you showing the audience some of the resources that we've got, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course. How are you, Amanda?
Yeah.
You okay?
Yeah, I'm fine, George. Are you?
Yeah,
I know I
good.
can't see. I know you're in London. I'm in Canada, but I'll see you soon anyway.
Yeah.
I think I'll see you for the works too, actually. I just want to. Could you please show everybody listening just some of the resources that you've got? And I'll just mute myself for a second, and then I'll go
Is that
through
coming
the
on the screen,
cases.
Amanda? Is that up on the screen?
Yes. Yeah.
Perfect. Hello, everyone.
Okay.
Hope you're all well. Obviously, a big thing. Obviously, is the webinar is a big topic for us at the moment. It's something we're getting asked a lot about coming up to Christmas as well. So I would always suggest at the start, if you are having any issues and you're a member of ours or you're a CIPD member, please utilise your advisory line. Give us a call. We can go through any queries, questions, and give you that real support when we're going through that. Now, the next thing we really focus on is obviously it falls under our health and safety topic. So we're going to come down into your health and safety side of things. Once we open that up, we've got a whole section on drug and alcohol support. So when you go in, you'll be given an overview, which will essentially tell you the laws and the facts around it, and your in-depth side of things. Now, we always give employers' duties and employees' duties on this section and an in-depth guide on exactly how to go through and support with any of these issues or challenges that you might be facing. And of course, we have all the supporting documentation to go through that I'll bring up for you. Amanda, did you want me to bring up some of the cases as well?
Yeah, take myself off mute. Yeah, those cases that are on my slides now, actually, if you could,
of course.
because I think if somebody is doing their CIPD levels, CPD levels, what I would like is if you show them the cases there, because they're really interesting to utilize and to do. If you're doing a thesis or something on drug and addiction, that'd be great to use. Great case history. So I know we've got a lot of that material on there. I'd like you to show that, and also just let everybody know, because I think Rachel has asked about the slides and recording. You get this in the email at the end, and also I've had a few people say that they were interrupted while they were on the webinar, which they didn't want to. So just to remind them of that as well. Okay, I'll let you know about the cases. Yeah.
So everyone's going to receive the recording afterwards anyway, and a few of our team will reach out to also get feedback on it. But so when you come into your in-depth and your topics, you're always going to get overview in depth and also your case law side of things. So when you go into the cases, we're going to give you your summary, your facts, all your different employers' notes as well. A lot of people use these obviously in real life scenarios to gain evidence of things that have happened close to their situations as well as they're moving through. Now, of course, Amanda, you spoke a lot about policy throughout as well.
Yeah.
So
got like machinery that's a dangerous, driving, etc. That you wouldn't have it in
Yeah,
just
of
like a
course.
little doctor's surgery.
So we've got all your policy here that covers everything you need it to. Now we update and maintain all these for you as well. It's our job to also tell you when these are changing. So we will filter that through and of course get your own logo on those sort of things as well. Now, if we go down to the testing policy, as you said, for those sort of larger companies, it will go through all your different procedures and everything. And it's a lot easier for a HR department to enforce and have conversations around these things once they've got policies in place.
Just stop on refusal to take tests. Let's have a look at that, actually. An employee refusing to be tested under the provisions of the policy may be subject to disciplinary action under the company's disciplinary procedures up to and including dismissal. The procedure may be delete as appropriate, blah, blah, blah. If the employee has a good medical reason for refusal, other reasons which are not medically related will not be accepted, and the employee is required to take the test. So when you actually take somebody on, you're going through your handbook, you're having a full induction, you're talking through that. And we've written that. Trust us, we've written it. We've got a legal promise there. We put our we put our name against this, so when you're utilizing those documents you can trust them, and we always keep them updated with any changes anyway. I'll hand back to you, George.
Yeah, I think a big thing is obviously you utilise the advisory line if you are going for any of these challenges. I think we get so many calls around how to do it or what to do, because it can be an awkward subject to how to support with it. So just make sure you're reaching out to us as much as possible. We've got loads of guidance, loads of documentation. The advisory line is there from a health and safety point of view as well as a HR point of view, so we can cover both aspects for you. And obviously just kind of making sure you've got the correct documentation to go through and support with it. But yeah, thanks Amanda.
Yep. Okay. Is that it, George? Thank you.
Yep. So,
yeah. Are you going to do a poll? Sorry, I thought you'd gone then. Sorry. So I'm just looking at the questions anyway while you're doing.
We're going to do a poll.
Yeah.
Perfect. So obviously HR Inform Pro is the new platform that we have released. So what we want to know is, obviously we are going to be running demonstrations for this week. We have availability at the moment, so we want to know, is anyone actually be interested in having a look at the platform? If you have the standard one at the moment, obviously looking to also upgrade and have a look at the extra bits of content we offer from a health and safety point of view as well.
Okay, so I think lots of people are voting there actually. And hey, tell people the difference between the HR Inform and the Pro.
Yeah. Of course. So with the HR Inform Pro, obviously we're focusing more on the strategical element than anything. So we're really working with your health and safety content, your HR management, and your strategy side of things, which is a big area for us. We're getting a lot more content and more depth on those areas. The other big areas that we're really focusing on, of course, are your line manager training and sessions that we've put together through that aspect as well. With those, so when you go into your training from a manager perspective, we're now breaking it down into your different courses and your different areas. So something like attendance management, for instance, you now get an in-depth training guide on how to do those sort of things as well. So there's a massive difference between your premium and your pro version. And of course, the health and safety line being covered as well, with your payroll stuff on there as well. So there's a lot more depth in there for you. So I think 17% of people have said they want to have some more information around Pro. So what will happen is we will reach out to you guys afterwards and obviously offer a demonstration and take you through what that's what looks like.
From all the HR people I know, they always want to learn more anyway. They're just actively learning. I think they're secret scientists or something, because they just want to learn all the time and learn. They never stop asking questions, and that's great. That's blooming fantastic, I think. And now, anyway, as we know, society and laws changing all the time. What we have in place, so it's a good thing. So thank you very much for that.
No worries.
So thank you, George. Is there anything else you'd like to add, or?
No, all good. Thanks for your time, everybody, and have a lovely Christmas. It's probably the last time I'll speak to a few of you before then.
Oh yes, it is Christmas soon. I haven't got one decoration up because I'm moving, aren't I? But I can't wait. I'm really looking forward to it. I love Christmas. Thank you, George. Thank you very much indeed. All right then. Okay, bye. Okay, showing my screen again. Let's go back. So let's have a look at some of these cases we spoke about, and have a look that you can see on the platform. George, you're still on live. George? Right. Okay, I think he's gone now. I think he was live there still for a second. but we'll forgive him just a second. So let's have a look at these cases. Okay, so we've got Sinclair versus Wandsworth London Borough Council. With this one, the employee failure to distribute alcohol policy made the dismissal unfair. That's how simple it was. You remember that induction I always talk about, get people to sign to say they've read and understood it. In this particular situation, they were drunk once, they got a final written warning. They were drunk twice, they were dismissed. The tribunal decided that dismissing an employee who had attended work under the influence of alcohol was within the band of reasonable responses. However, this dismissal was procedurally flawed. So the council had not circulated its alcohol policy to Sinclair, nor to other relevant individuals, and had not made clear exactly what Sinclair needed to do to stop the disciplinary action, namely to actively seek treatment for his alcoholism. There was a way to avoid disciplinary action, but they had not made it clear to him. So that's a very simple case there, basically down to let's distribute things, let people know that they've had them and signed them, and that we've got a read receipt for them as well. Now this one, the next one, is McElroy versus Cambridgeshire Community Services NHS Trust. So the trust's disciplinary policy included being unfit for duty through the effect of drink as an example of gross misconduct. I've had loads of questions about this. The substance misuse policy defined this as the employee being incapable of functioning effectively at work. And it also provided that an employee refusing medical help would not be grounds for disciplinary action. Now, the investigation report noted a number of previous occasions when managers had expressed concerns at smelling alcohol and Mr. McElroy, but no one had actually expressed any concern about his behaviour or suggested that he'd been acting drunk. The trust decided to proceed with the disciplinary hearing. So we have that particular case, and again, it's all about the fact that we have to keep in, we have to make sure that we support our employees. I've had a lot of questions about supporting actually, and I've had people asking what type of services. So it's an employee assistance program, it's pinpoint, is access to your health, your HR, occupational health maybe, it's access to outside counsel if you're a smaller company, and we're going to talk about supporting employees through addiction anyway. So identifying the signs of substance abuse and outside work. Let's have a look. Unexplained or frequent latenesses or absence, changes in behaviour or personality, unexplained dips in productivity. This could mean other things as well, by the way. It might not just mean, don't assume somebody's got an addiction. These can be other things, more accidents or near misses, performance or conduct issues. These may not mean they're signs of a problem. They could be for a variety of reasons, but being aware that something is wrong is often the first opportunity an employer has to deal with a substance abuse issue, as it's not something an employee would usually disclose without some prompting or direct questioning. If you're seeing these type things, it's probably time to have that conversation or a chat. Again, it's something that may take some time, but your approach to these chats is really important. Non-judgmental, you can talk to me, ask the question and pause. If you go through something, there might be something we can do to support you. Key to this is integrity and confidentiality. If you say you're going to do something, do it, but also be discreet as you would be with other medical matters. If you don't deal with these, then you get poor quality of work, missed deadlines, you get complaints, people feeling unsafe, adverse impact on company reputation and customer relations, and a negative impact on team morale. And I think I may have told you in the past about the company I dealt with that had a gentleman that left work because they had overwhelming drug usage in the younger generation in the environment that he worked in. And he left the company. They never asked him why he was leaving. They never did an exit interview with him. He'd been there for years. He went to the local pub. A few weeks later, he bumped into that business's main client who owned a company and said, "Oh, how are you doing? How's work?" And he said, "I've left." And that their main client, the director of the company, the owner of the company, asked him, "Why have you left?" He told them honestly, "I can't work at that company anymore. The drug use is unbelievable." Overnight, that guy withdrew his contract from that firm, the biggest source of income. and they brought in an outside agency to test their staff. And the outside agency, when they test their staff, said that this company had the worst case of cocaine use they'd ever seen in all the testing that they'd done. But it took somebody leaving the company and them losing business because of it for them to make a change. So talking about substance misuse, let's have a look again. Passing judgment is neither helpful nor necessary, so don't do it, okay? You aren't expected to fix the employee, but you can offer support of EAP or occupational health. A lot of the questions today were asking, what help can we do? Be open to root causes, and it may be there's something historic here that's contributed, and that's where I feel, I never judge. I never judge anybody for the way they are or what they do. I always think there's something behind there. There's a root cause for a lot of things. So be prepared to have an open, honest, and above all, private and confidential chat. And you have to have this confidential. Have regular contact, a return to work plan, and have a policy. So when an employee tells you that they have substance misuse, there are steps you can and likely should take. So you're not expected to fix people. That's what you've got to remember. So don't worry that those are the lengths you have to go to, which is a lot of the worry that HR have, that they have to get a solution. Getting involved doesn't mean taking on the employee as a patient. You're just moving in the circles you can, which for most people doesn't include actual treatment measures. Offer support of the employee assistance program, occupational health, even Frank, by the way, or the AA. Be open to root causes. Is there something going on at work that's causing it or contributing it? Is it stress? Is it excessive workload? Is it harassment? Is it bullying? Those are things you have to do. You can do something about, but some of the things, especially historic stuff that that's happened to them, personally, maybe we can offer them the EAP and get them some counselling. But obviously, there might be stuff that we can't change. So support the employee. And again, lots of questions on this. So if I haven't answered your question, it's because I knew I was answering them towards the end. But support the employee. So have that policy. And as Greg said, there's policies on our platform for you to use. Be flexible with time off or leave and duties as well. Agree regular contact. So be flexible with the time off during the day, stroke duties. Engaging with help may need some flexibility from you over working hours or time. And you may also need to think about flexibility with duties. So temporarily taking someone away from what they usually do and agreeing something else they can do, especially if they perform a safety critical role, and allowing them to continue would not be safe in your newfound knowledge. Leave from work might be necessary as well. Plan absence management. And I've worked with a farm there, actually. I can think of a farm where they had a gentleman that was had a drinking habit and drove through. I may have told you this one before. I'm sorry if I repeat myself. It's my age. But and also I'm trying to limit. There's stories I can't tell you that are so horrific, but there's stories I can. And this is one of the ones I can, where a very remote area farmer has a farmhand that uses the tractor while intoxicated. A farm vehicle drives through the hedge, normally a campsite, but it's off season, luckily, because had it been during the season, the person would have killed people. But luckily they didn't, and found to have a drink problem. They had leave from work. They recovered. They're a recovered alcoholic. So it could be leave from work might be necessary. Plan absence management. How are you going to class the time off? Some employers offer paid leave for medical related leave like this, but actually it's rare. Is it a sickness absence, and will it go towards absence triggers? If the employee is disabled and the disability is why they need the time off, then they should be discounted from trigger points. Think about using annual leave maybe in these situations. But again, use our advice line to offer the solution that works for you. If they are taking time off, keep in touch with them and agree how that contact will be made, how often, etc. Make plans for their return to work and talk to them about it beforehand. It will be completely individual, but it could involve a phased return to work, either working hours wise or duty wise or light duties. If you didn't go down this road and instead dealt with instances as purely disciplinary matter with no extra support offered, and so were to dismiss, is an employee with a substance addiction issues, you will run the risk of unfair dismissal. And that's where we're bringing in the Employment Rights Act. I mentioned at the start, it's the same as when you're dealing with an employee with any other medical condition and the performance dips because of it. Now, you do a medical capability procedure rather than a disciplinary procedure, which involves more support, more acknowledgement that it's not so much that willing their fault. Addiction is a recognized medical condition, and so in that sense, there's no reason why you shouldn't treat the employee how you would treat an employee with a medical condition that wasn't addiction. Also means that failure to seek treatment or follow treatment plan can result in dismissal and a disciplinary dismissal. And then also comes the disability angle. If the employee has a physical or mental impairment caused by alcoholism or drug addiction, and this results in a high absence, so for example, liver disease means they aren't well enough for work, or a mental health problem, then that's what you focus on. The physical or mental condition, you have to make reasonable adjustments. Now, for the disability involvement, again, not making the adjustments when it's someone who has a disability is where the extra risk comes in. They should be, and they should be applied no matter what led the employee to that position. So, create a return to work plan, look at disability, look at about how you're absence managing, think about capability, agree regular contact, be flexible and reasonably adjust. This is what we should have and the policy in place as well. And that's supporting the employee. Is the workplace making it worse? In some industries, it's like this workplace culture. Sometimes the environment someone with substance and misuse issues is in can either help or inhibit their recovery. A workplace where drinking is commonplace, perhaps celebrating a team by taking them out for a boozy lunch, having a few beers with clients or social events held in bars, isn't a problem for many people, but for those who struggle with alcohol, it can be tough for them. Thinking about alternative ways of celebrating people and socializing together that do not involve alcohol can be a big help. As I said, alcohol is one of the hardest things to give up because it is so socially available and acceptable. Is there a drinking culture in the workplace? Do you allow alcohol consumption during working hours? Do you have a big end of month drink celebration? Are social events always centered around alcohol? Of course, you are allowed to do these things, but maybe it's time to have a rethink. And also within our businesses and organizations, we have so many different religions and beliefs anyway, and lots of people don't drink, and also people choose not to drink, and there's a big movement now for alcohol-free movement. So having that support. So returning to work, create a plan with the individual, make adjustments to their work if necessary, agree how long this will be for. We need a deadline ourselves. So if an employee has been absent for a period of rehabilitation or has been granted a more flexible arrangement to receive support from a drug charity or medical professional, but is now in recovery and able to work normally, you should plan for their return. And in many cases, this is likely to be a similar approach to an employee returning after a long period of sickness absence. So consider a phased return to work, a mini induction to allow them to catch up on any missed business changes or developments, and ensure line managers support them during their first few weeks. You may also have to offer some flexibility in the employee's working pattern. So it may be that they might have to attend meetings, for example, if the employee is part of a mutual aid fellowship like Alcoholics Anonymous, and they might have to attend 90 meetings in the first 90 days. But you should work with your managers to address any aspects of work that could have been contributing to a problem as well. So, that's returning to work. And then what we have is testing at work, which again is some of the questions that I've been getting about testing at work. There should be a good reason for testing. Testing should be in a relevant policy which outlines the potential implications of a positive result. We have to be very clear on data protection here. It is advisable to include a clause in your drug and alcohol policy which provides you the right to do this. Alternatively, you could produce a separate policy outlining this right. The policy should dictate how the test will be undertaken taken, what will happen if an employee refuses to take the test, which we saw on one of the documents earlier on, and specifically that a positive result could result in the instigation of a disciplinary procedure. The purpose of these tests must be to prevent accidents caused either directly or indirectly by an employee's substance misuse, even if such misuse occurred during their own time. Remember that screening employees usually involves taking blood or urine samples from the employee, and is in itself a difficult and sensitive issue. To this end, it's actually important not to single out any one individual during the testing process. Tests should be implemented across the board, and without the existence of a policy, employees should not be forced to provide a sample. Okay, such an action could be regarded as assault. Even with a policy, employees should also not be forced. However, in this situation, you should be free to implement disciplinary action in line with your policy for their non-compliance. Now, it's advisable to include a clause within your policy that details certain medical reasons which may be acceptable for not taking part in the tests, such as pregnancy. However, care must be taken to ensure that the tests conducted do not place an employee at risk. There needs to be a justification for introducing testing. For example, the safety critical nature of the work. If you don't have a clear business reason, you should be considering whether testing really is appropriate for your business. You shouldn't just have it, like I said earlier on, in just like a small office environment where there's no need to have testing at work. Acting on a positive test, disciplinary is an option. So potentially gross misconduct. One way of dealing with this could be an invitation to a hearing could advise that attending work under the influence of drugs is a disciplinary issue, and where there are safety implications of the role, it could be considered gross misconduct. The letter should also confirm that the positive test will remain confidential until the process is exhausted. If an employee is willing to seek professional advice about their problem, there is the potential to issue a final warning, subject to the employee accepting an immediate referral to an occupational health advisor and agreeing to their recommendations. The company can treat this as a health problem and set the condition that the employee remains drug-free. Otherwise, there may be the possibility of further disciplinary action. And now, if the employee follows the recommendations and tries to get clean, further action can be avoided. A period of leave and a phased return might be appropriate to help ease the employee back into their work. This could be a medical suspension on full pay. Alternatively, the employee could be signed off sick by a relevant medical practitioner. Random testing is recommended on their return. Testing positive could in the future prompt a revisit to disciplinary and dismissal, depending on the circumstances, such as their use of heavy or dangerous machinery. So help. If there's lots of things we can do to help people, there's lots of support we can give, but at the end of the day, there has to be a conclusion if this carries on. So again, another related case, which I'm just going to read out for you to look up on, because I know that we're running out of time. But in summary, a duty of care is owed as well as obligations arising under the Equality Act. Addiction should be treated like any other illness. Immediate steps may need to be taken where an employee is suspected of or has tested positive for being under the influence at work. And this may lead to further processes, including disciplinary or managing the problem as a health issue. Testing is possible within the workplace. It should be included in relevant policies. So don't forget, we're here to support you. We're going to send you, whoops, I don't know what all these slides are, sorry. A webinar survey will come up. We are the HR Inform. My name is Amanda Chadwick. I know once again we've gone over because this has been a jam-packed webinar today. This has been one that you've asked me to do. It's one I've done before, and not for the CIPD HR Inform. I've done this dark side of HR before, talking about addiction and intoxication. It's questions we get asked all the time. We always get it, and we often don't know how to handle it. I hope I've given you some clarity here today. And I hope that you found this useful. I'm going to leave you now and just say to you that if I haven't answered your questions, that we will come back to you on them. We will print them, we will collate them, we will answer them for you and send you a copy of them in the email with the recording and the slides. I'm apologising because this has been such a rammed webinar today. We are here at the CIPD HR Inform with our platform and our platform pro as well. Please take advantage of having a look at that and developing your HR skills and support. But on that note, thank you very, very much for listening to me. I hope that you have a wonderful afternoon and the rest of the week, and that our resources are supporting you every step of the way in your businesses and your organisations and in your personal strength and goals as well. Thank you very, very much indeed. It's goodbye from us at the CIPD HR Inform, and it's goodbye from myself, Amanda Chadwick. Thank you very much indeed.